"Hi sir, why is my mother's picture in your wallet?" The question rang out, sharp and sudden, freezing the busy cafe mid-motion. Conversations died. Cups hovered inches from lips. She stood there, stunned, holding the wallet like it might burn her. His eyes dropped to the photo she held, an old, worn image, and the color drained from his face. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside, time stood still. Who was he to her mother? Why did he look like he'd seen a ghost? The truth has been buried for too long. Stay. Everything is about to change. Rain whispered against the windows of Maple Hearth Cafe, weaving a soft, melancholic melody through the clatter of cutlery and low hum of conversation. Outside, leaves in burnt orange and gold danced on wet sidewalks, carried by the breath of autumn. The scent of fresh espresso mingled with cinnamon, creating a warmth that the chill beyond the glass couldn't reach. Inside, Ivy Quint moved gracefully between tables, the coffee pot steady in her hand despite the chaos of the morning rush. 19 and nimble, she weaved like a seasoned performer in a ballet of clinking mugs and scattered orders. Her apron was dusted with flour, her ponytail hastily tied, and yet there was a quiet strength in the way she carried herself, like someone who had learned how to stay standing in a world constantly shifting beneath her feet. She had only worked here for 6 months, but she knew the rhythm of the cafe better than most. Every morning began with the same determination, to make it through another shift, another day, another stack of hospital bills. Mr. Bell, the elderly owner with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, had hesitated at first. But Ivy, desperate and disarmingly honest, had convinced him. "I learn fast. I won't let you down. I just need this job. Please." And she hadn't let him down. Not once. Today was no different. The cafe buzzed with life, locals on laptops, tourists taking shelter from the rain, couples nestled into corners sharing secrets over scones. Ivy refilled mugs, scribbled orders, offered soft smiles that never reached her tired eyes. Her focus was sharp, her pace efficient, but beneath it all, the weight of her mother's illness sat heavy on her chest. Elena Quinn. Once vibrant, now frail. Ivy didn't let herself think too long about hospital corridors or test results. Not during work. Not when tips mattered. The bell above the door chimed. A hush fell over the cafe, not obvious, not dramatic, but subtle. Heads turned. Conversations faltered. He stepped in, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne and rain-soaked cashmere. Tall, poised, mid-50s with salt and pepper hair and the kind of presence that filled a room even when he said nothing. Grant Ellison. Ivy barely looked up at first. Just another customer. Until she caught the shift in Sandra's tone, the manager's usual briskness melting into something softer, reverent. "Good morning, Mr. Ellison. It's an honor." Ivy glanced over then, curious. She recognized the name. Everyone in Belmorne did. Ellison Hartwell Group. Real estate empires, investment portfolios, foundations with golden plaques. Grant Ellison was wealth incarnate, a man who lived above the clouds, whose world never intersected with hers. So why was he here? He offered Sandra a tight smile, eyes scanning the room briefly before settling at a corner table near the window. Ivy noticed the subtle discomfort in his stance, like someone not used to small spaces, or too much attention. He didn't belong in a place like this. And yet, here he was. Ivy took a breath, grabbed her notepad, and approached his table like she would anyone else's. Professional. Calm. "Good morning, sir. Can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" He looked up at her, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered in his expression. Confusion. Familiarity. Gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Black coffee. No sugar. Coming right up. She turned before the moment could stretch into awkwardness, pushing the encounter to the back of her mind. But something about the way he watched her retreat stuck with her. Like he was remembering something he wasn't supposed to. The lunch rush had started to slow, though the rain outside showed no sign of easing. Ivy moved through the cafe with the same practiced rhythm, her arms full of empty dishes and half-finished lattes. She was heading back to the counter when her eye caught something small and dark on the floor, just beneath Grant Ellison's chair. A wallet. She bent down, fingers brushing the leather, and called out instinctively. "Excuse me, sir, I think you dropped your..." Her voice faltered. The wallet had fallen open. Inside, tucked between a few sleek business cards and an old receipt, was a photograph. Yellowed at the edges. Creased. Loved. It took only a heartbeat for recognition to strike. The soft smile. The gentle curve of the cheek. The eyes, her eyes. Her mother. A much younger Elena Quinn, maybe in her 20s, stood in the photo surrounded by golden autumn leaves, sunlight dancing on her hair. Ivy's world tilted. She blinked once. Twice. Her chest tightened like a fist was closing around her lungs. No. No way. Her fingers trembled as she held up the wallet, photo facing forward. "Hi, sir." Her voice was low, trembling, barely audible over the hiss of the espresso machine. Then louder, firm, "Why is my mother's picture in your wallet?" Silence. Grant looked up, confused at first, then his eyes dropped to the photo and he froze. Ivy watched the color drain from his face, watched his spine stiffen like he'd been struck. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. "Answer me." Her voice cracked. "Why do you have this?" Around them, the cafe began to hush again, but neither of them noticed. For Ivy, the rest of the world blurred. All she could see was the man in front of her, and the look in his eyes. Recognition. Guilt. And something else she couldn't name. Grant finally reached for the photo, his hand moving as though it weighed 1,000 pounds. He took it gently, held it between his fingers, and stared at it for a long, haunted moment. "Elena," he whispered. "Elena Quinn." Ivy's heart slammed against her ribs. "You know her?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked up at her, really looked. And the shock gave way to something deeper in his expression. Something breaking. "Yes," he said hoarsely. "I knew her. A long time ago." "How?" He swallowed hard. The cool, composed demeanor he had worn like armor all morning was cracking. Ivy could see it, how he struggled to hold himself together, the way his fingers gripped the photo like it might disappear. "We were..." His voice faltered. "It was years ago. College. We..." He stopped. Ivy's mind raced, every thought screaming louder than the last. Why would this man, this billionaire CEO, have a photo of her mom from decades ago? Why would he look at her like she was something familiar? Then something sharper cut through her confusion. "Did you love her?" Grant didn't respond immediately. But the answer was already there, in his eyes. He nodded once, slowly. "Yes. I did." A sharp breath escaped her lips. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Where is she now?" "Elena." Ivy stiffened. Her defenses snapped back into place like a shield. "She's sick," she said coldly. "In a hospital. Fighting for her life. And you," her voice cracked again, angrier now, "you're just now remembering she exists." Grant sat back like the words had struck him physically. He ran a hand through his hair, face pale and stricken. "I didn't know," he murmured. I swear to you, Ivy, I didn't know. She froze. What did you just say? He blinked. I said I didn't know. No. Her voice was sharp. You said my name. Ivy. How do you know my name? Grant stared at her. His lips parted, then pressed shut again. And then, almost in a whisper, because now? I know who you are. You said my name like it meant something, Ivy said, voice shaking but razor sharp. So tell me, Mr. Allison. Who the hell am I to you? Grant didn't answer right away. He couldn't. Because the answer tasted like blood in his mouth. He sat frozen, his fingers still gripping the photo, her photo, like it might vanish if he let go. The rain outside pounded harder now, drumming against the cafe windows as if echoing the chaos erupting inside him. Ivy, he breathed, as though saying it again would make it easier. It didn't. She crossed her arms. Her stare was unrelenting. Start talking. He exhaled, a slow, agonizing release, and then, he broke. Your mother and I, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. We were in love. Deeply. Desperately. And we were stupid enough to believe love was enough. Ivy flinched. It was college. She was electric, nothing like the people I was used to. She challenged me. She laughed at me. God, I loved her for it. His lips curled slightly, then twisted with pain. I told her I'd leave everything for her. The company. The family name. I didn't care. But you did, Ivy snapped, eyes blazing. Because you didn't leave. She did. Alone. Grant slammed his palm down on the table, startling her and himself. A few customers looked over, but neither of them noticed. Because my father made her leave, he growled, the cracks in his composure finally splitting wide open. He found out. He threatened her. He told her if she didn't disappear, he'd ruin her. He'd destroy everything. Her family. Her future. He paid people to follow her, silence her. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I didn't know. Ivy's heart stopped. Pregnant. He didn't know. Her voice was suddenly small. You're saying. He forced her to leave you. He didn't just force her, Grant said, eyes burning. He erased her. Every letter she sent, he intercepted. Every phone call she tried to make, cut off. She probably thought I turned my back on her. And I thought she vanished by choice. He looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to find pieces of Elena in the curve of her jaw, the fire in her voice, the pain she tried so hard to hide. I've missed 19 years of your life, he said hoarsely. Because I believed a lie. Because I trusted the wrong man. And I will never, his voice cracked, never forgive myself for that. Ivy pushed her chair back, standing so quickly the legs scraped hard against the floor. You don't get to do this, she hissed. You don't get to show up out of nowhere and rewrite the past like you're the victim. Tears were brimming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She cried for months. Do you understand that? She worked 2 jobs while throwing up from chemo. She never went on dates. She never loved anyone again. Her fists clenched at her sides. And now you're telling me it was all because your father, some power-hungry monster, decided she wasn't good enough. Grant stood too, reaching out, but she stepped back. Ivy, please. Don't say my name like you have the right to it. Silence fell between them like a blade. Sharp. Final. He stood there, breathless, broken. And she was shattering from the inside out. Then, quietly. She named me Ivy because it means to admire. She said I was her miracle. Her voice trembled. But if she was my miracle, what does that make you? Grant had no answer. Only regret. And it was written in every line of his face. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fading hope. Ivy sat by the window, her phone resting on her knee, unread messages piling up. She hadn't told her mother what happened. Not yet. How could she? How do you tell someone the ghost of their past just walked into your life and offered to save it? Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. She hadn't eaten. Hadn't cried either. Not yet. A soft knock at the waiting room door pulled her out of the fog. Grant stood there, holding 2 coffees. He looked unsure, like a man stepping onto a battlefield barefoot. I brought this for you, he said, holding out the cup. Black, no sugar. Same way I take mine. I figured. Maybe it runs in the blood. Ivy didn't take it. You don't get to make jokes about blood. He set the coffee down on the table between them. Fair enough. Silence settled like fog. Then, I'm not doing this because I want your money, Ivy said coldly. Let's be clear about that. I know. And I'm not doing this because I forgive you. Or because I believe some fairytale about my mom, and you being some great love story ruined by a villainous father. It wasn't a fairytale, he said quietly. But it was real. She shot him a sharp look. You don't know what real is. You weren't there when she coughed up blood in the middle of the night and begged me not to call the ambulance because she couldn't afford another bill. You weren't there when I was 13 and had to learn how to read medical charts and insurance rejections because no one else would. Grant's throat tightened. I should have been. But you weren't, she exploded, her voice breaking. You were probably in some high-rise boardroom, sipping $100 whiskey while I watched her collapse in the kitchen and prayed it was just exhaustion. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away furiously. You don't get to show up now and act like you care. You don't even know what her favorite color is. You don't know that she hums when she's anxious, or that she reads poetry when she can't sleep. You don't know anything. Grant looked down at his hands. Then teach me. Let me learn. Let me be here now. Why now? She whispered, the fight slowly draining from her voice. Why not 10 years ago? Or 5? Why now that she's dying? His voice was low, trembling. Because I didn't know you existed. And the second I did. The second I saw that photo. I knew I couldn't lose you both. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full. Of everything she hadn't said. Of the years lost. The pain buried. Then he pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. This is everything. Silver Grove Medical Center. The oncology team, the transfer papers, the new treatment plan. I've already spoken to them. All we need is consent. Ivy stared at the folder like it might explode. And what? You just think she's going to say thank you and welcome you with open arms. No, he said simply. I think she's going to hate me. Maybe forever. But if she walks out of that hospital alive, I'll take every ounce of that hate. Ivy's voice was hollow. She won't want to be anyone's charity case. Especially yours. This isn't charity. This is what I should have done from the beginning. I don't care how she sees it. I care that she has a chance to live. Ivy stood up, her hands shaking. You don't know her. She'll reject it. She'll reject you. Then let her. His eyes met hers. But at least let her make that choice. Don't make it for her. Her breath caught in her throat. Because he was right. And she hated that he was right. She looked toward the hospital wing, her chest heaving with unspoken grief. Every second she waited was a second stolen from her mother. Fine. Her voice broke. We'll transfer her. But if she says she doesn't want to see you, you walk away. Agreed. And you don't try to buy your way in. You don't try to play hero. You help and then you go. Got it? Got it. She didn't thank him. She couldn't. Not yet. But when she walked back into her mother's room and held her hand, something had changed in her heart. A door hadn't opened. But a lock had turned. The room was too quiet. The air too still. Elena Quinn sat propped up against the white hospital pillows, an oxygen line trailing beneath her nose, her hands frail, but still steady in the way only strong women know how to be, especially when everything inside them was breaking. She thought Ivy was lying when she said he was here. She laughed, weakly, and waved it off as fevered imagination or medication-induced delusion. But then she saw the look in her daughter's eyes. And now, as the door creaked open, Elena turned her head, and time cracked in half. He stepped in slowly. Tentatively. As if the ground might collapse beneath his feet. Grant. Older. Weathered. But still him. The man she had loved. The man she had hated. The man she had mourned while carrying his child. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elena's voice cut through the stillness, hoarse, disbelieving. No. No. It can't be. Grant's chest tightened. He tried to speak, but the lump in his throat wouldn't move. Elena. Her eyes widened, breath catching. Get out, she whispered. Please, he said, stepping closer. I didn't know. About her. About any of it. I said, get out, she snapped, louder this time, and it sent a beeping warning through her heart monitor. Ivy, standing near the door, instinctively rushed forward. Mom, calm down. Please. Elena's eyes didn't leave him. They were filled with 20 years of fury, sorrow, and a love she had tried to bury so deep it would never resurface. Why are you here, Grant? Why now? After everything, why would you dare to show your face? Because I finally know the truth, he said quietly. And because I still love you. That stopped her cold. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away like she'd trained herself to for decades. Don't you say that, she hissed. You don't get to say that. You left me. I waited for you. You promised. He stopped me. Her mouth opened, but the words caught. Your father. He nodded. He found out. About us. About everything. And then one day, you were gone. No explanation. No goodbye. He told me you moved on. That you wanted nothing to do with me. I tried to find you, Elena. I tried. But he had cut every thread. And I believed him. I was a coward, and I believed him. Elena's hands shook now. You have no idea what he did to me, she said. What it cost me to walk away. I didn't do it because I stopped loving you. I did it because I was scared. I had nothing. No money, no protection. And I was pregnant. Grant inhaled sharply like the words had physically hit him. You didn't know. Of course you didn't, she said bitterly. He made sure you never would. Ivy had gone still at her mother's side. She had heard parts of this already. But hearing it from Elena, hearing the crack in her voice, made it real. I raised her alone, Elena continued, her voice cracking. And I told myself I didn't need you. That she didn't need you. But I was lying. She deserved more than what I could give her. She's everything, Grant said. You both are. And I will never stop trying to make it right. Not with words, but with whatever time we have left. A long silence settled between them. The kind that only exists between two people who used to share everything. Then Elena sighed, long and slow, as if exhaling years of anger. I don't forgive you, she whispered. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I know. But if you're serious about helping, then do it. Not for me. For her. Grant nodded. His eyes never left hers. Whatever it takes. She turned her face away, not ready to look at him anymore, but not ready to say goodbye either. And that was something. Later that night, Ivy stood with Grant outside the room, staring through the glass as her mother drifted into sleep. She didn't throw a tray at you. That's a good sign, she said softly. Grant smiled faintly. I was kind of expecting one. Ivy didn't look at him when she spoke next. You can stay. For now. Grant turned to her. Thank you. She shrugged. It doesn't mean anything. Just don't screw it up. He nodded. I won't. And for the first time, Ivy didn't walk away. She stayed. Right there beside him. The first day at Silver Grove Medical Center felt like stepping into a different world. Bright halls. Soft-spoken nurses. Cutting-edge equipment. It was nothing like the crowded public hospitals Ivy had grown used to. Here, everything felt quieter. Cleaner. Calmer. But also heavier. Because here, nothing was hidden behind long wait lists and outdated machines. Here, they told the truth in exact measurements: white blood cell counts, tumor growth percentages, survival rates. And the truth. It wasn't kind. Elena's cancer had spread. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it, but they also didn't surrender. There's still a path forward, said Dr. Havers, a tall man with silver-rimmed glasses and a calm voice that carried authority. Aggressive chemo. Possible surgery. Immunotherapy if we see response. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible. Elena had nodded without flinching. I've been through worse, she said, her voice thin but resolute. Let's fight. And just like that, the war began. The treatments started the following week. Ivy spent her days by her mother's side, adjusting fours, reading aloud poetry when Elena couldn't sleep. She massaged her hands during chemo. Cleaned up when her mother vomited. Held her when the pain was too much. And every day, Grant came. Not with speeches or flowers or pity, but with quiet consistency. He brought Ivy lunch when she forgot to eat. Drove her home when the night shifts became too long. Paid her rent for the next 6 months without asking, just so she could breathe. She protested at first. I don't need your money. It's not about need, he replied. It's about time. You deserve time with her without worrying about everything else. She didn't thank him. But she didn't fight as hard the next time. Some days, they'd sit together in the family lounge, Ivy flipping through her mom's old journals, Grant quietly beside her. She used to write poems about you, Ivy said once, eyes scanning a page yellowed with age. She never said your name. Just him. She was always better with words than I was. She was better at surviving. Yes, Grant whispered. But you are her greatest poem. The words caught her off guard. She didn't know what to say. So she said nothing. But the next day, she brought 2 coffees instead of 1. Weeks passed. Elena's body grew weaker, but her will stayed steel strong. On the bad days, she cried. On the worst days, she begged Ivy to let her go. "You're wasting your life watching me fade. Then I'll fade with you. Don't you dare." Elena's eyes blazed with fury. "You live, Ivy. You fight." It was Grant who helped Ivy stand again when the burden became too much. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said, one night as they sat on a hospital bench beneath the moonlight. "I've been carrying it alone my whole life. And I've been waiting to help you carry it. Let me." Something cracked open inside her then. Not fully. But enough. Enough to lean her head against his shoulder. Just for a moment. Enough to allow herself, for the first time, to wonder. What if this man, this stranger, could actually be a father? Grant, too, was changing. He no longer made business calls during visits. No longer wore tailored suits. He took off the mask of the powerful CEO and replaced it with something far more human, a man trying to earn his place in the lives he had lost. Every smile from Ivy, every glance of forgiveness from Elena, it lit something in him. But the guilt never left. "I wish I had found you sooner," he whispered one night, standing over Elena's bed while she slept. "I would have given everything to have these years back." Ivy heard him. She didn't say a word. But she didn't walk away, either. And in silence, they fought, together. Not just for Elena's life, but for a chance to build something new, from the ashes of what was lost. Elena had always believed some wounds never healed. She lived with them, made peace with the scar tissue. She'd raised a daughter with one hand and held her broken heart with the other. For years, it was enough to just keep breathing. To survive. So when Grant reappeared in her life, Elena didn't feel hope. She felt the sting of reopened flesh. She didn't need his money. She didn't want his guilt. And she sure as hell didn't want his redemption. But then came the treatments. The endless hours under fluorescent lights, the pain that coiled through her bones like fire, the days she could barely hold a spoon, let alone her pride. And Grant was there. Quiet. Unwavering. He brought a blanket when the room got too cold. Waited outside her chemo sessions even when she told him not to. Never pushed. Never demanded. Just showed up. One evening, after a particularly brutal round, she found a small envelope on her tray table. Inside was a worn photo, the same photo she'd once given him in college, long before the world got cruel. On the back, in his handwriting, "I never stopped carrying this. Even when I thought I had to forget." Elena pressed it to her chest and let herself cry. For the first time in years, she let herself. It wasn't sudden. Her walls didn't crumble all at once. But they started to shift. She let him sit with her longer. Let him bring her favorite tea, just the right amount of honey, no lemon. She didn't flinch when he adjusted the pillow behind her back, or reached out to steady her when she wobbled. And slowly, she started to speak. "You know," she murmured one afternoon, as the machines hummed beside her, "for a long time, I told Ivy her father died." Grant stiffened in the chair next to her, but said nothing. "It wasn't a lie." "Not exactly. The man I loved, he died the day he never came for me. The day I thought he stopped fighting." His voice was barely audible. "I didn't stop. I just lost the war. So did I." They sat in silence for a long while after that, two veterans of the same battlefield, finally sitting on the same side. 8 months later, the scans came back. Partial remission. Signs of tumor regression. Her body's responding. Dr. Havers delivered the news with a calm smile, but Ivy wept like the world had just started spinning again. Elena, ever the stoic, just nodded once. But her hand reached for Grant's without hesitation. And he took it. Life didn't become perfect overnight. But it became possible. Grant became more than a background figure. He was there, helping Ivy fix the flickering kitchen light, showing up at the hospital with her favorite blueberry muffins, sitting beside Elena at every follow-up. He didn't lecture. Didn't push. Didn't try to replace anything. He earned it. Bit by bit, day by day. One afternoon, Ivy found him in her apartment kitchen, wearing a wrinkled apron, absolutely butchering a pancake recipe. You're supposed to flip them when they bubble, not when they're screaming for help. He looked up sheepishly. I was trying to surprise you. You surprised the pan. They laughed. And it was the most natural thing in the world. But the moment, the one that would stay with him forever, came quietly. A warm Sunday afternoon, up on the rooftop garden of Silver Grove. Spring had finally returned, wrapping the city in soft gold and green. Elena sat under a sun hat, sketching. Ivy leaned against the railing, eyes closed to the breeze. Grant stood beside her, watching her, not like a CEO sizing up a deal, but like a father trying not to want too much. And then she said it. Just like that. You know. I think you're starting to earn it. He turned. Earn what? She didn't look at him when she spoke. But her voice was clear. The right to be called Dad. He froze. No words came. None were needed. Tears burned behind his eyes. He reached out, gently placing a hand over hers. And in the soft hush of that golden afternoon, Grant Ellison, once a man drowning in guilt, felt, for the first time, like he was home. It happened on a quiet morning. No grand setting, no elaborate speeches. Just the three of them, gathered in the small garden behind Elena's apartment, where lavender bloomed and the sunlight filtered through the leaves like something sacred. Grant reached into his pocket, fingers shaking. Elena noticed, of course she did. She always noticed the tremble behind the stillness, the emotion behind the silence. You okay? She asked softly. No, he admitted with a half laugh. I've closed billion-dollar deals without blinking. But this. He dropped to one knee. Her breath caught. Ivy, sitting nearby with a book in her lap, froze. Elena Quinn, he said, voice thick with everything he had never been able to say. I've loved you since I was 21. And I've spent the last 20 years regretting every day I didn't fight harder for you. He held out a ring, simple, elegant, a marquise-cut diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires. But Elena didn't look at the ring. She looked at him. You don't have to make up for the past, she whispered. You just have to be here now. I want to build something with you, he said. Not because we lost time, but because we still have time. There was a silence. Long, gentle. Then Ivy stood, walked toward them, and nudged her mother playfully. It's a good ring, she said. I helped pick it. Elena let out a soft laugh, part disbelief, part wonder. Her fingers brushed the ring, but didn't take it right away. You're sure about this? Grant nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. And she nodded, too. Not because of the past. Not because of the memories. But because of what she saw now, in his eyes, in her daughter's smile, in the life they were finally allowing themselves to live. Then yes, she said. Let's come home. Later that evening, Ivy stood at her window, watching the city lights shimmer like stars that had forgotten how to fall. Grant walked up beside her, a cup of tea in hand. She said yes, he whispered, like he still couldn't believe it. Ivy took the tea, sipped slowly. Of course she did. You really believe that? She looked at him then, not as a stranger, not as a ghost from the past, but as something entirely new. I believe in second chances, she said. Turns out, we all needed one. He smiled, full and quiet. And for the first time in her life, Ivy didn't feel like something was missing. For the first time, she felt whole. The first time Ivy stepped back onto campus, she felt like she was waking up from a long winter. Not just from school, but from the life she had put on pause. She had once buried her dreams beneath hospital bills, double shifts, and endless fear of what tomorrow might bring. She'd learned how to survive. How to endure. How to carry the weight of the world in silence. But now, things were different. The scholarships Grant quietly secured helped, of course. But more than the money, it was the freedom. The quiet reassurance that she no longer had to do it all alone. That someone, two someones, had her back now. Elena, in remission, had started painting again. The walls of their apartment were slowly becoming a gallery of light and color. There were still rough days, of course. Fatigue. Follow-up appointments. Lingering shadows. But there was laughter, too. Shared meals. Music on Sunday mornings. And Grant. Grant didn't try to force anything. He didn't call her sweetheart, or demand hugs, or talk about the years they lost. He simply showed up, on move-in day with a toolbox, during midterms with food, and once, during a thunderstorm, with an umbrella and no explanation other than, I just thought you might need one. Sometimes they talked about nothing. Sometimes they talked about everything. And little by little, Ivy stopped keeping count of the years he missed. She started counting the ones they were building now. One evening, as the three of them shared dinner on the balcony, Elena wrapped in a shawl, Grant pouring tea, Ivy laughing at one of his terrible puns, there was a pause. A quiet, golden moment of stillness. Ivy looked at them both. We're weird, she said, smiling. You know that, right? Elena raised an eyebrow. Speak for yourself. Grant chuckled. We're a little crooked, sure. But maybe the best things are. Crooked family. Clean slate. Ivy lifted her teacup in a toast. To second chances. They clinked cups. And in that moment, there was no past weighing them down. No wounds still open. No regrets louder than love. Just three people who had every reason to fall apart, choosing instead to hold on. To heal. Together. Because destiny had separated them once. But this time, it brought them home. There are some truths that time cannot bury. Some wounds that don't disappear, but soften. Fade. Transform. And some loves that never truly leave. For Ivy, life didn't magically become perfect. There were still hard days. Moments of doubt. Times she stared at her ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering what her life would have been if the truth had come sooner. But then she would remember the look on her mother's face when she picked up a paintbrush again. The sound of Grant's laugh when she finally roasted him back in a family game night. The feeling of standing between two people who once lost everything, now slowly, tenderly, building it back. And that was enough. Because in the end, family wasn't just the people who shared your blood. It was the people who stayed. The ones who chose you. The ones who kept showing up, no matter how broken the past, no matter how uncertain the future. They had been separated by silence, by pride, by circumstance. But love had waited. And when it was finally given a second chance, it bloomed. Imperfect. Raw. Real. Just like them. This was a story about truth, hidden, but never destroyed. About second chances, rare, but worth everything. About family, not always by blood, but by bond. And about love, enduring, even through decades of silence. Because some hearts don't forget. They just wait.